Welcome to Cooking on the Kenai. Today, I'd like to show you how to make a savory kuchen. First, I'm going to show you how to make the bread for the base, and then we'll make the filling. Into my bowl, I'm going to add a tablespoon of yeast and 6 tablespoons of warm water, not hot. And I need to stir this around to dissolve my yeast and allow it to bloom. Blooming means that it is going to be hydrated and it will start to foam. Next, I'm going to add 1 cup of lukewarm milk that has been scalded and cooled. What scalding is heating your milk until tiny bubbles appear on the surface. It's not up to a simmer and definitely not a boil. What this does is it kills the enzymes that can cause the yeast not to function. Because the milk has been scalded, I need to make sure the temperature is down between 102 and 115 degrees. Mine reads 112. So I'm going to pour in 1 cup of milk. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons, or a tablespoon and a half of sugar, a tablespoon and a half of shortening. I use butter shortening, that's why it may look a little yellow to you, and a teaspoon and a half of salt. I'm going to stir that up just a little bit. And I am going to add 2 cups, roughly, of flour. I don't usually measure this a lot because when you make yeast bread, it gives you a range of flour to use. And so if it says 2 cups, I just dip in my cup for 2 times. Now I'm going to beat this until it's smooth. Usually that takes a couple of minutes, and what you're doing at this stage is you are developing the gluten strands that form the structure of your bread base for the kuchen. So I'm just going to beat this about that long so it's fairly smooth. To this I'm going to continue to add flour. I know I'm going to need probably another cup, so I'm going to add flour until I get this dough to where I can handle it. I have added about another cup of flour, but it's still too sticky to handle. So I'm going to add a tablespoon or 2 more of flour into my bowl and stir it until I think I can handle the dough when I put it on my mat. That looks fairly good to me, so I'm going to lightly flour, well, a little heavier than lightly. I'm going to flour my board. I am going to put my dough down, and from here on, I am going to knead this, which is folding, pushing, turning. Fold, push, turn. I'm going to knead this for 8 to 10 minutes, adding flour only when it starts to get sticky. The goal is at the end of this kneading time, you won't have any flour showing on your mat, and you have worked whatever flour you needed in until the dough is smooth and satiny. Okay, my dough is done, and you can see that I am touching it and it's not sticking to my hands. If you pick it up, it is very smooth and soft, and you can see blisters underneath the skin. That means that your yeast is working. I have a little bit of oil in my glass bowl here, and I am going to take my dough and put it in to the oil and turn it over so that my dough is ready to go. Now we're going to prepare the filling for the kuchen. In my skillet, I have 2 tablespoons of butter that I have melted. To that, I am going to add a half a pound of small diced sweet onions, like Spanish or Mayan sweet onions, and a clove of garlic that I have cleaned. I'm going to put that in, and I am going to cook this until my onions turn translucent. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes. My temperature is on medium-high so that I can get this cooked fairly quickly. You can caramelize the onions if you choose to, and that means to cook them until they are brown. It adds a sweeter flavor to this kuchen. I'm going to add a pinch of salt to my onions for a little seasoning and get that stirred in. Once your onions have turned opaque, turn off your heat. Stir in your ham that you've chopped up. Add your sour cream. This is a 1/4 cup of sour cream. It was 3 ounces of chopped ham, a half a cup of a blend of cheddar cheese and Monterey Jack, and 1 egg. You're going to stir this all together. And then we will put it onto our dough that we will get into the pan in just a moment. I'm going to turn my dough out onto my board without any flour, and I am going to cut my dough in half. A traditional kuchen has a dough base of 1 inch or more thick. I choose to use half my dough so that I can have a thinner crust, which is less filling. I'm going to roll out my dough that I put into a rectangle to fit my 13 by 9 cookie sheet. It will end up about 1/4 of an inch or so thick once it is in the pan. Okay, that's about right. Okay, I'm going to put it in my pan. Gently adjust your dough to fit your pan, putting a lip around the edge of the dough so that your filling will not be out onto your pan. It will be within your crust, just like that. It may be a little thinner than 1/4 of an inch, depending on the size of your cookie sheet. This was a greased cookie sheet that I put it in. While making this recipe, I made half of the filling to go on my half of the dough. So you add your filling and spread it evenly over the top of your bread base, right to the edges. Try not to go over the top of the rim that you put. Get it as even as possible. And you are going to put this in a 350-degree oven for 15 to 25 minutes, depending on your oven. I'm going to put some dill weed on it before I put it in the oven. Dill goes well with eggs, cheese, and ham. You could use any other herb you would like, but dill is what I prefer. So I'm going to put our kuchen in the oven for 15 to 25 minutes. Our kuchen is done. You can tell it's done when it has golden brown edges on the crust. Here's our completed kuchen, golden brown around the edges and beautifully browned across the top. I'm going to cut it into a wedge and show you what the inside looks like. This has a creamy top like a quiche, a custardy top like a quiche, and a very smooth filling. Savory onion kuchen. What a treat. Thanks for watching Cooking on the Kenai.